Before diving into the stark reality of Africa's partition, imagine a continent alive with flourishing kingdoms, intricate trade networks, thriving empires, and vibrant cultures, all poised on the brink of a dramatic upheaval. This is the story of how Africa, once a mosaic of rich civilizations, was reshaped forever by forces far beyond its borders, without its people's consent or presence. Once a land of sovereign powers, Africa found itself unraveling in the late 19th century as a tempest brewed across Europe, a collision of ambition and avarice destined to rewrite the continent's destiny. This is the hidden saga of how an entire continent was seized without a single battle being fought on its soil, the infamous Scramble for Africa and the Berlin Conference. In 1884, within a cold Berlin chamber, Europe's dominant powers convened, not with Africans but among themselves, to share out a land they scarcely understood. This tale unfolds as one of treachery, greed, and the division of Africa with no African voice at the table. By the century's close, Europe hungered for the riches of rubber, gold, ivory, and dominance. The Industrial Revolution's insatiable appetite demanded these resources, while empires sought to stretch their reach. Africa's immense wealth became the coveted prize. In November 1884, German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck summoned 14 European nations plus the United States to Berlin, aiming to prevent conflict by slicing Africa into pieces like a cake. Yet no African rulers were invited, no kings, chiefs, or elders. The continent's future was charted with a ruthless disregard for its peoples. Boundaries were drawn heedless of cultures, languages, or histories. Britain staked claims in eastern and southern Africa, while France ruled much of the west. Belgium, under King Leopold II, claimed the Congo, not even for Belgium but as his personal domain. Africa was carved as one might carve meat from a platter. Leopold dubbed his acquisition the Congo Free State. But freedom was a cruel illusion. Workers who failed rubber quotas faced brutal punishments, including severed hands. Around 10 million perished in one of history's most tragic yet overlooked genocides. African kingdoms protested, sending envoys, penning letters, begging for peace. Their voices were ignored, unheard beyond European walls. Their lands, cultures, and sovereignty were reduced to mere profit zones. By 1900, over 90% of Africa was under European dominion, with entire civilizations thrown into chaos. Native languages were banned, traditions vilified. Yet despite these assaults, seeds of rebellion began to sprout. Africa had no seat at the table, yet it was the main course. The Berlin Conference set the stage for a century of suffering, defiance, and survival, yet the story did not end there. To grasp Africa's present, we must confront the concealed truths about its past, especially how African peoples resisted colonization. Armed with guns, deception, and flags, Europeans sought submission. But Africa did not bow quietly. Across mountains, coasts, jungles, and deserts, resistance blazed. This is an account of defiance, of rulers, warriors, queens, and everyday citizens rising against empire. In Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik II anticipated the onslaught. He armed and trained his forces while scrutinizing the drafts of European treaties. At the 1896 Battle of Adwa, Ethiopian troops decisively defeated Italian invaders, a stunning blow that reverberated through Europe and ignited hope across Africa. In West Africa, Samori Toure forged a formidable empire through trade and savvy strategy. He waged a 16-year guerrilla campaign against French forces, blending war and diplomacy. In present-day Nigeria, Queen Amina of Zaza had long before constructed walls and led armies, laying foundations for resistance. When colonial powers arrived, new leaders like Yasantawa of the Ashanti rose, leading rebellions such as the 1900 revolt where she declared, "If the men will not fight, I will." Further south, Shaka Zulu revolutionized African warfare. His legacy inspired subsequent Zulu uprisings and resistance in Zimbabwe by leaders like Mbuya Nhanda and Lobengula of the Shona and Ndebele peoples. Struggles extended beyond battlefields, to poetry, prayers, clandestine schools, and subtle acts of sabotage. Africans refused erasure. They safeguarded languages, preserved oral histories, and sang secret songs of freedom. This was resistance, not silent suffering but relentless defiance. Though many battles were lost, the seeds sown nurtured future liberation movements. The scramble for Africa was contested fiercely. The spirit of resistance endured and still burns today. When force faltered, Europe wielded deception, its civilizing mission a guise for divide and rule. They sowed discord by privileging some tribes over others, fomenting mistrust that lingers in Africa's social fabric. In Nigeria, the British governed indirectly, empowering select chiefs while weakening rivals, branding some groups loyal, others hostile. In Rwanda, Belgian colonizers formalized ethnic divisions through ID cards classifying Hutu and Tutsi, culminating in a later genocide. They imposed foreign tongues, demanded allegiance to distant kings, and forced adoption of alien religions. In the Congo, children were taught to despise their heritage and revere their oppressors. African identity was punished, mimicry of Europe rewarded. Schools obliterated ancestral knowledge, churches condemned traditions, and colonial media portrayed Africans as inferior and uncivilized. Yet beneath this, resistance simmered. African intellectuals wrote, questioned, and remembered. Secret schools taught truths, and griots, poets, and elders kept ancestral stories alive. Divide and rule sought to erase unity and memory but underestimated the tenacity of heritage. Europe professed a civilizing mission, but greed was the true motive. The scramble was a theft of resources: gold, diamonds, rubber, oil, cocoa, cotton. Europe shaped Africa to supply its factories and coffers. In Congo, Leopold's Free State became a death camp. Thousands lost hands extracting rubber. South African mines fueled imperial wealth through brutal African labor. Ghana's cocoa enriched Britain while poverty consumed locals. Railways served colonial mines to ports, not Africans. Taxes forced Africans to work colonial enterprises just to pay dues, a theft disguised as progress. Colonizers claimed development but owned the land, banks, industries, and schools. Africans were reduced to mere laborers without rights, consumers stripped of wealth, and renters on their ancestral lands. Profits poured outward while losses piled inward. Even after independence, debts and unfair trade routes kept the flow unbroken. Today, Africa continues to bleed wealth through exploitative deals, foreign dominance, and modern corporate colonialism. The scramble never vanished. It simply adopted new names. Yet truth lays bare the theft and its enduring shadow across contemporary Africa. Though the scramble belongs to history, its echoes persist. Borders crafted by Europeans still divide families, tribes, and nations, not by reason but by colonial convenience. Conflicts ignite where artificial lines were drawn. In some nations, multiple dominant languages compete for power, none truly African. Roads lead from mines to ports, not from village to village. Schools continue to celebrate European heroes while sidelining African champions. Colonial-era laws remain largely intact. Courts favor those fluent in former imperial tongues. Democracy itself was imported, not organically grown. As a result, Africa remains trapped in a foreign template. Its economy thrives on extraction. Africa cultivates crops it doesn't consume and devours goods it doesn't produce. Raw materials are exported, finished products imported, just as a century ago. Multinational corporations hold sway over land, resources, and wealth. Youth unemployment climbs as resources supply foreign tech, luxury, and empires. Yet Africa alone bears the blame for its woes. Media labels it corrupt, unstable, broken. But it was never broken by Africans. The scramble shattered it, and the damage was never fully healed. That legacy lives on, in institutions, symbols, and deep scars. Yet memory ignites strength. Countless African heroes of resistance were almost erased, but Africa remembers them all. The scramble was met with fierce flames, not silence. From queens to generals, farmers to poets, defiance spread across the continent. In Angola, Queen Nzinga outplayed the Portuguese through cunning and courage. In Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik triumphed over Italy at Adwa, shaking European thrones. The legacy of Shaka Zulu inspired warriors long after his passing. Algeria's Abdel Kader fought years of guerrilla war against the French. In Ghana, Yaa Asantewaa raised armies to reclaim the Golden Stool, defending not only their land but dignity. These were not mere rebels. They were freedom fighters, visionaries, nation builders. Some wielded weapons, others used words. Samori Touré led a West African empire resisting for over 15 years. Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, a Nigerian mother and educator, fought colonial patriarchy by founding schools for girls. Africa resisted in battle, books, and spirit. Even when weapons quieted, the struggle persisted through songs, stories, and memory. Colonizers held power, but Africans held soul. Now the world begins to hear Africa's voice. Reclaiming its history, the continent speaks anew. For centuries, outsiders dictated Africa's story. They branded us savages, tribes, backwards. They wiped out kingdoms, buried queens, renamed rivers. But now Africa responds. We are not waiting to be found. We were never lost. From Timbuktu to Great Zimbabwe, our histories were etched in stone, echoed in song, mapped by stars. Today, African scholars rewrite textbooks. Filmmakers restore truth through images and sounds. Artists reclaim symbols once used for oppression. We reclaim more than land, we reclaim our narrative. The internet has become our new drumbeat. Voices from the diaspora resonate beyond borders. Young people challenge colonial names, flags, and laws. We unearth archives, translate oral histories, and expose stolen legacies. Reclaiming history is no mere nostalgia. It is healing. It is restoring dignity. It is power. Because those who own their story also shape their future. Africa's future will no longer be forged by those who stole its past. We are more than victims. We are visionaries. We carry the legacy of warriors and wisdom keepers. As we reflect on this powerful story of struggle, resistance, and reclaiming identity, ask yourself, how will you help rewrite Africa's future? What legacy do you want to be part of? One of silence or of bold voices rising? If truth matters to you, if history inspires you, will you join us in uncovering the stories that shaped a continent and continue to shape the world? Subscribe now so together we can delve deeper, challenge old narratives, and champion the heroes Africa never forgot. Will you be part of the journey to reclaim history and shape tomorrow?